And of course, how appropriate. One of the best things we get to do on this radio program and television program, that's right, we're in 110 million TV homes every day and 150 radio stations. You, our audience from across the country and sometimes across the world, send us guests, authors, celebrities, speakers, and sometimes CEOs of public companies that you want us to talk to. So one such company I believe we've talked to before. In fact, I know we have. His name is David Arthur. He's the CEO of a company called Salarius Pharmaceuticals. Salarius Pharmaceuticals, of course, publicly traded under the stock symbol SLRX. Now, this is a little high tech, but we got a ton of email last time from investors as well as listeners of this company saying they want to hear more about these guys.
And when the band found out, they said, "How about if we play? I want a new drug."
Fantastic.
See,
Actually, it was
see how creative they are.
It was Rusty's idea.
Very creative.
Salarius Pharmaceuticals is developing new approaches for the treatment of pediatric and hard-to-treat cancers. Now, look, this is not a great subject and fun subject to talk about, but Dave was so great with us a couple weeks ago, we thought we'd bring him back because we had such a great response. But David, joining us here on Zoom, good to talk to you, man. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back. It was a great discussion last time, and looks like you guys are having a lot of fun today. And this is a serious topic, but it's always great to get a chance to talk about it and share the story with other viewers.
Yeah, I want to. So give us the top down, because last time you kind of put it into layman's terms what's going on in this country with respect to cancer treatments and harnessing research into what you called epigenetics. So first of all, what is epigenetics?
So epigenetics is a scientific term that really just describes what happens when the body misreads healthy genes.
Wow.
It's as simple as that. And it's not unlike any of us being in the kitchen and following a recipe. If we follow it correctly, we put the right ingredients in the right amount, in the right order, and we get it into the oven, it comes out exactly the way we wanted it to. Unfortunately, just like we'll go in and, I'll do it all the time, is I make a mistake, I pick up the wrong ingredient, I pick up the wrong measuring spoon, and next thing I know, I've replaced salt with pepper, I put it in the wrong in order, and I have a problem on my hands. That's exactly what happens with the body, unfortunately. It'll misread healthy genes and end up combining parts of two different proteins. We've all heard the protein word before. Two parts of two different proteins, it combines them together, and not every time, but a lot of times when that happens, you create something called an oncoprotein, and next thing you know, you have a protein that should never exist. It's called a translocation, should never exist, and it's telling the body to grow one of these cancers, and a lot of times it's a pediatric cancer.
So talk to us about this. How are we doing as a country with respect? I mean, just the U.S. I understand that it's an international issue. I understand there's a lot of different companies and scientists working this. But how are we doing as a country on eradicating cancer? I mean, because you hear, sometimes you hear that somebody has, let's say, breast cancer. They catch it early enough, it's not a big deal. Or skin cancer used to be a death sentence. It's no longer a death sentence. So where are we on that scope? What does that array look like right now?
Well, I think you started the conversation off on the right track. You've got to start by looking at the last couple of decades and the absolutely amazing strides that have been made in the number of treatment choices, the introduction of checkpoint inhibitors that allows the body to fight, to recognize cancer as an invading organism and allowing the body to attack it. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of cancers that 20 years ago were a death sentence, and now you have a fighting chance. Having said that, we all know people, and we all know how devastating cancer can still be across children, young adults, and people in the later half and the later third of their lives. So as a country, there's a lot more we need to do, and companies are doing it. I would believe, I don't have the exact numbers, but I would believe the majority of the biotechnology companies out there are pursuing some sort of cancer treatment because, unfortunately, you find a cure for one tumor, and you know what? You found a cure for one tumor, and there are thousands of tumors out there.
Wow.
Okay, so before we get to specifically what you guys are doing, by the way, David Arthur's his name. He's the CEO of Salarius Pharmaceuticals. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol SLRX. If you want more information, you can go to salariuspharma.com. We'll put that up on our website so it's easy to find. Before we get to specifically what you guys are doing, David, talk to us about how COVID has exacerbated or accelerated FDA views of what's going on with.
Yeah, are they busy with the whole COVID thing? Or
because from what I understand, as far as the vaccine goes, the reason that vaccine was approved so quickly is because they skipped the line one of the reasons there's a 5-year waiting period sometimes with FDA approvals is because there's just so many darn drugs that would be reviewed. Those vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer, J&J got to skip to the front of the line for review. Did that affect anything for your own drugs and them assessing efficacy of some of the things you guys are doing?
So for Salarius as an individual company, the FDA has been an amazing partner to work with. And I think it's for the same reason that these COVID vaccines were able to be made available to people so quickly. At its heart, the FDA is all about putting life-altering or life-saving drugs into the hands of patients. And so when these large companies came along with COVID vaccines in the middle of a pandemic, they jumped to the head of the line, and we saw what the FDA is all about and what they can do when it's crunch time. Yeah. We Salarius have seen many of the same behaviors for our drug, which they realize could be a life-altering or life-saving medication. So when we call the FDA, they're all about helping us. We were recently, last year, selected to participate in the Pediatric Oncologic Drug Advisory Committee, which is a committee that the FDA uses to understand how to work with companies like ours who are developing new pediatric indications that don't fall into the current framework. They want to know what they can be doing to help. And I think COVID and what they're doing with companies like Salarius is a great example of what the FDA can be all about.
And there's not as much money going to pediatric cancer research as the bigger picture. What percentages are the kids getting for the research?
Well, you're absolutely right about that. And it's unfortunate because as I touched on last time, there are about 16,000 new cases of pediatric cancer in the U.S. every year. And so by definition, they're all rare. And if you're big pharma, you're looking for the multi-billion-dollar.
Well, of course. I mean, it comes down to a dollars and cents thing. David, listen.
It does. And so,
I think a piece of this that we need to understand is that if you follow the money, it's not always a positive thing. David, we're going to have you back next week. We're all out of time this time. David Arthur is his name.
I learned so much in that.
Every time he talks to us,
I'm telling you.
CEO of Salarius Pharmaceuticals. They are publicly traded. SLRX. SalariusPharma.com. More coming up. We got Russ's favorite topic coming up on the Big Biz Show. Stand by.